Stan Lee turns colorful characters into superheroes.
I am Iron Man. When I say it, there's this disclaimer that goes through my head, like, come on, moron, don't get too inflated.
You are amazing.
His heroes are timeless.
It's really about characters. It's about real people.
After all this, Stan Lee is still a kid at heart.
I hope that whatever I do brings people enjoyment.
Comic genius Stan Lee, on this episode of Books into Film.
I just want to introduce you all to the legendary Stan Lee, the creator of Spider-Man, X-Men, and of course the Fantastic Four and many others.
Stan Lee is a comic genius. He's co-created some of the most popular superheroes of all time.
I never felt I was writing for grown-ups, for kids. I was just writing stories that I thought I would like to read.
In the early 60s, Lee was an editor at Timely Comics. He was fed up with his job.
My publisher had a feeling that comics were just read by very young children or by rather stupid adults. That was his theory.
Stan was about to quit when his boss asked him to create a brand new comic.
He said, Stan, I'd like you to come up with a group of superheroes, more than one, 3, 4, and put them in one story, kind of like the Justice League.
The world got its first look at Fantastic Four in 1961. Sales went through the roof and fan mail poured in. Timely Comics was rebranded as Marvel to reflect the new direction Stan had taken their stories.
If something was happening in a story, I'd put a little note saying, I know this contradicts something that happened last issue, but I was hoping you wouldn't notice that. You know, little asides to the readers. So it was more than they were just reading a story, but it was something we were all enjoying together.
A new day is dawning. The day of the Fantastic Four.
Fantastic Four was released as a live-action movie in 2005. A group of astronauts get superpowers after they're exposed to cosmic rays.
When you try to create a superhero, one of the most important things you need is a power that the superhero will have, and hopefully one that's a little different than any other superheroes have.
The cloud has fundamentally altered our DNA. That's gross.
Each of the Fantastic Four has a distinct personality and power. Mr. Fantastic is the leader of the bunch, a brilliant scientist with the ability to stretch.
I made him a little bit like me. He talks too much, he bores people, he likes to use big words, and he was a little bit of a nerd in a way.
Let's not fight.
No, let's.
The Invisible Girl can bend light to disappear. She's also Mr. Fantastic's girlfriend.
Superheroes were always rescuing their girlfriend, who didn't know that the boyfriend was really a superhero. So I figured I'm going to get a girlfriend, but I'll treat her differently. Not only will she know that the other fellow is a superhero, she'll be engaged to him, and she'll be one of the members of the team.
The Human Torch is the Invisible Girl's little brother.
I loved the idea of this person who could burst into flame and fly.
Cosmic rays turn Mr. Fantastic's friend into the Thing.
He's not willing to accept it. He doesn't want to be a hero. He doesn't want to be a monster, certainly, and he doesn't want the attention.
The actors felt the pressure to please fans who had read the comic over the past 40 years.
It's a little bit nerve-wracking, but at the end of the day, they come from a position of passion and love for these characters and these comic books.
What if we got these powers for a reason?
The Fantastic Four wore skin-tight suits that didn't hide their identity.
It's very tight. I was like, oh gosh, that's gonna fit me? Are you sure? Because it's smaller on the hanger. It stretches out when it's on you.
I remember first seeing it on the hanger, just, you know, let me get in it right now. And it was just so exciting to actually look in the mirror. And I think I might actually slipped into the bathroom real quick and just did some little, you know, karate moves in the mirror on my own. It was great.
I'm head to foot covered in this suit, and as soon as I start to do anything physical, your body heat goes up, and has nowhere to escape. So you become brutally hot very quickly.
He had a bunch of people looking after him, making sure his body temperature didn't get too high, but we were all just feeling bad for him that he had to do that, and we didn't.
Over 800 shots in the movie blended live action with CGI effects.
We never could have done a movie like The Fantastic Four 15, 20 years ago. We didn't have the technical ability. We didn't have the special effects. But now you can put almost anything you can imagine on the screen. Thank you for coming to my wedding. I hope you enjoy it.
Lee loves to do cameos when his comic books become movies.
That guy's great. I mean, he's 80 and he's just so full of life.
He saw me in full costume and he just came over and hugged me and said, you know, to think, 1963, the year you were born, I was drafting the thing on a draft board and, daydreaming and everything, and here I am looking at the manifestation of it in person. It's just intense.
It's such a thrill for me to see these characters that had formerly just been on paper come out on the screen.
When we return, a teenage boy becomes a Spider-Man.
One of the things that makes him pretty great is that he's just a regular kid.
By 1962, Stan Lee was a budding comic genius who had co-created Fantastic Four. Then he saw a fly on the wall.
I thought to myself, what'll I call him? A fly man? Nah. Insect man? Oh, that doesn't sound good. Mosquito man? That's corny. And I went down the list and I got to Spider-Man. And somehow that sounded dramatic, mysterious. Spider-Man.
Spider-Man's popularity grew over the decades that followed. So when a movie came out in 2002, fans could not wait.
Is that you?
Pete?
How strange. There's nobody here.
Spider-Man's huge success comes in large part because that's the comic book Spider-Man. They didn't change anything substantial.
Wow, great reflexes.
Tobey Maguire plays Peter Parker, the boy who becomes the Spider-Man.
He's just a regular kid, with regular types of problems who gets superhuman powers and has to deal with, growing up through that.
Peter is a loser in day-to-day life. He can't get it straight to save his life, and Spider-Man is his big release.
He's bullied by the other kids. He's not the biggest, strongest kid in school. He's not that popular with girls. I felt every teenager in the world could relate to this guy.
Hey, you have blue eyes. I didn't notice without your glasses. You just get contacts?
I definitely relate to the character. I've had my moments when, I felt awkward socially, or I wanted to communicate with somebody and show them who I was, but I just couldn't figure out how to do that.
It would have been very tempting of them to hire a really classic Hollywood pretty boy to fill that role, somebody who didn't look like he could be a schlub or didn't look sort of put upon, and Tobey Maguire was the perfect casting choice.
He saved my life twice, and I've never even seen his face.
Oh, him.
Kirsten Dunst plays Peter Parker's love interest, Mary Jane. She says Maguire had to work for months to become Spider-Man.
He spent like 6 months or something like that before the film and was just getting buffed out. People were like, is that really his body when he looks in the mirror at himself? And I'm like, yeah, that's him, that's him.
The Spider-Man film franchise has been careful to retain the secret of what made the comic popular in the first place.
There was one panel where I had him say, with great power comes great responsibility. And he decides he has to use his power to help people.
The idea that power brings responsibility and the burden of responsibility, which is the theme of Spider-Man, is something that will be a constant thread that every generation will understand.
If I help this person, what will it cost me? Should I risk something of myself and say something because I see an injustice? I'm afraid. Should I do it anyways? This is really what the story is about.
Lee sets his story in a real city. New York. Spider-Man dukes it out above the streets of Manhattan.
Everything takes place in the real world, not in like, Gotham or Metropolis, these kind of like made-up cities.
These aerial combats, the people were streaking, 50 miles an hour through the city, so no location stayed still. They're revolving around each other, and the camera is moving in 3 dimensions.
While action is a huge component of the Spider-Man movies, the director was careful not to lose sight of Lee's characters.
Sam, put so much focus on the acting and the stories that it really doesn't feel like an action movie sometimes. It feels really almost like a character piece.
Everybody needs help sometimes, Peter. Even Spider-Man.
The Spider-Man movie franchise has earned over $2.2 billion at the box office, and the famous web-slinger will certainly be back for more.
There's so many characters that have never even been explored in the movie, and he's a great, rich character. He's a real human being.
When Stan Lee was creating his next comic book franchise, X-Men, in 1963, he decided to make it simple.
With the X-Men, I'll just say they were born that way. They were mutants, and then I don't have to come up with cosmic rays and gamma rays.
2000's X-Men was the first blockbuster movie based on one of Stan Lee's comic books.
You're a mutant. The whole world out there is full of people that hate and fear you, and you're wasting your time trying to protect them.
These young people, when they learn of their powers, it's frightening. It's terrifying. Suddenly, they do things that nobody else can do. And how did this happen? And what did they do?
The X-Men was the watershed moment. Before then, a lot of comic book adaptations were not strong. The Batman franchise had clearly petered out by that time. And there was a lot of trepidation, whether the X-Men movies would just be more weird, dumb rehashings.
Give me a chance. I may be able to help you find some answer. But you know, you're not the only one with gifts.
The X-Men team is brought together by a telepath named Professor X. He runs a school for gifted youngsters where people who have superpowers can live without fear.
It was just a place where they would learn to use their powers, to accept the hand that fate had dealt to them, and to learn to adjust in society.
I have always been especially drawn to this project of movies by the issues that are raised about freedom of choice, about persecution of the individual, about denial of being other and of being different. What have you done? I'm sorry, Charles. I couldn't help it.
I knew how many millions of people, particularly in North America, but across the world, had high hopes of the film and wanted it to be as good as their imagination of the characters from the comic strip.
Hugh Jackman is Wolverine, the most famous X-Men character. Landing the role made Hugh an overnight celebrity.
When I went into the agency, when I got the job, and people are yelling out, "Wolverine, go, buddy, go!" I thought, okay, this is going to be a pressure job because I have to live up to the expectations of so many people.
He got that snarling, spitting, charismatic, and yet angry all the time, persona, and he really made it work.
Drop the knives and put your hands in the air.
This is just a misunderstanding.
Put the knives down.
I can't.
Hugh Jackman as Wolverine sort of took over the series, just the way Wolverine had taken over the comic books. He became the most popular character, which of course upsets me gratefully because he's the one character I didn't create.
The first boy I ever kissed ended up in a coma for 3 weeks.
Just like Spider-Man, the X-Men were awkward misfits who became an unstoppable franchise.
I think what's great about X-Men is that beyond all the fun, beyond all the great stuff that there is on screen and the bigness of it, the special effects, etc., it's really about character. characters. It's about real people.
It's an analogy for being a teenager. It's an analogy for having acne. It's an analogy for growing up gay. It's all of those things. Everybody can. That's a theme that resonates with everybody, and they kept that in the movie.
The struggle to fit in, the struggle to feel like you belong somewhere, is something everyone can relate to on some level.
Do we change ourselves, or do we force the society to accept us and to have tolerance and accept us as we are? That's the question, you know, and I think it's a great metaphor for life.
You know, Magneto's right. There's a war coming. You sure you're on the right side?
At least I've chosen a side.
When we return, a comic genius gives Robert Downey Jr.'s career a boost.
This was a character that he could empathize with, he could get inside of his skin.
In 1962, comic genius Stan Lee wrote his own Jekyll and Hyde story, The Incredible Hulk. A blast from a gamma bomb makes Bruce Banner turn into a monster whenever he gets angry.
Bruce Banner was always looking for a formula, something that would cure him of becoming the Hulk. He didn't want to turn into the Hulk.
When The Incredible Hulk was made into a TV series in 1978, professional bodybuilder Lou Ferrigno was cast to play the Green Monster.
I dreaded the makeup. I mean, there are days I had thoughts of saying, hey, I'm going home, I'm done with it. I just wanted to go in bed, close the shade, wash my face, and just be a normal person. But that's the price I paid.
Maybe for 5 or 6 minutes you'd see the Hulk. Maybe 3 minutes at the beginning of the show and 3 minutes towards the end. And that was clever, and everybody waited for that scene when the shirt would tear and the shoulder would come out and he'd turn into Lou Ferrigno.
Bruce, I don't understand what I just saw.
In 2003, director Ang Lee turned the Hulk into a feature film. Hollywood had developed the technology to create a digital monster that fit Stan's vision.
Hulk has a structure that's definitely not a regular guy. And the muscle, the size, the weight, the physics of him, it cannot do it. Even sometimes I was thinking maybe just a quick shot of a hand just won't work. We have to go all CG. That's the way to do it these days, I think.
You're making me angry. I don't think you're gonna like me when I'm angry.
I knew it would be a huge challenge, and I knew that even though it's in the comic book genre, that people would not get exactly what they're expecting. And that comes from, you know, having a director like Ang Lee on board.
It's a family drama. It's human relationship. To have Hulk to burst out, to have that great energy and psychological, emotional energy, you have to build it up.
It was an experiment, and it wasn't 100% successful, but it was just another way of doing the Hulk.
It was a very cerebral treatment of what is, at core, a very primal idea.
There are aspects of my personality that I can't control.
Target is in the overpass.
In 2008, Universal Studios tried again. This time, Edward Norton played Bruce Banner. Norton was a fan of director Louis Leterrier's decision to make the film action-packed from start to finish.
He talked about using handheld cameras a lot. He talked about having the visual experience be dirty, and by that he meant not always, you know, perfectly composed, but a sense that there's a certain kind of a sense of chaos and horror film aspect to it, and I liked that a lot.
The Incredible Hulk fared well at the 2008 summer box office, but it was overshadowed by another Stan Lee comic creation, Iron Man. Lee created Iron Man in 1963. This time, his hero builds a suit of armor to fight bad guys.
He was the only superhero who doesn't have a superpower, if you think about it. He has to wear the armor. Without the armor, he's just like anybody else.
The Iron Man is Tony Stark, a rich businessman with a tragic flaw.
He's wounded in his heart, and he has to make an electronic device that he wears to keep his heart going. And that device was something that made him very fallible and very vulnerable.
There's been speculation that I'm parading around as a superhero. I'm just not the hero type.
I sort of modeled him after Howard Hughes, although I didn't have him go nuts at the end.
Jon Favreau directed the 2008 movie.
I knew that if I did anything, you know, that was successful as, you know, dramatically or emotionally, that it would exceed people's expectations.
You rehearse that much?
Every night in front of the mirror before bedtime.
I can see that.
I'd like to show you firsthand.
Critics agreed that Robert Downey Jr. was an inspired choice to play Iron Man.
I am Iron Man. When I say it, there's this disclaimer that goes through my head like, come on, moron, don't get too inflated. I'm not Iron Man, I just got to play him in this movie.
Tony Stark, he likes his liquor, and he's a little bit of a playboy and so forth. And as you know, Robert Downey Jr. had some problems in the past with liquor and so forth. And so this was a character that he could empathize with, he could get inside of his skin, but also he was a heroic character and a dramatic character.
Gwyneth Paltrow plays Pepper Potts, Stark's personal assistant and love interest.
What's going on here?
Let's face it, this is not the worst thing you've caught me doing.
We've got a really nice thing between us, and it really works for the relationship. It's kind of like, it's very, you know, there's a kind of banter and a sort of sexual tension that they have that's a lot of fun to play.
The cast of characters, the actors, the scenes between them, the romance, the comedy, the dialogue, is the aspect that I'm most proud of in this.
Is it better to be feared or respected? And I say, is it too much to ask for both?
By the end of 2008, Marvel heroes accounted for more than $5 billion in worldwide box office receipts.
I hope that whatever I do brings people enjoyment. And if it does, then I feel that's a measure of success.
Stan Lee is a comic genius whose stories appeal to children of all ages.
If you think about it, these comic book superhero stories are like fairy tales for grown-ups. They have the same elements, things that are bigger and more colorful and more exciting than life.